All right, welcome to our Wednesday live stream. I am Chris Castleman here with Brandi Martindale. I got in a
Hello,
fight with a
everybody.
lawnmower this week and I shaved.
You look great.
Thank you. I hope I look younger.
You do.
Uh,
You look significantly less transient, also.
Here you go. I'm not a bum anymore. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
You're not going to
Uh,
blend in as well, Chris, when you go undercover.
for sure. I'll have to buy a fake wig and a bum beard. It was like crawling out sideways was the problem. I
It
couldn't
was
tame it.
robust. Yeah.
All right. Well, uh, I think we'll just get right into it. You had you had a friend, Sheena Corbus, who's on the city council in Coquille, and we've been trying to schedule this for a while. So it's pretty cool that we were able to finally get it to happen. But tonight we have Sheena uh, on with us. We're going to ask her some questions and just, try and keep it casual like we always do. I know there's some stuff going on in Coquille with like there was a budget thing. I didn't have quite enough time to look into it, but we reached out to the mayor, and I think we're going to do maybe like a pre-recorded thing and talk to him about that separately. But that would have been cool to have them both on. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. He had a scheduling conflict, it sounded like.
for sure, yeah,
Yeah.
something on Wednesdays, always on Wednesdays. I get that a lot because I'm trying to get candidates for the district elections on, and I swear everybody has stuff on Wednesdays. So look, we picked the wrong day to
It
do
is. It's a
this.
busy day. I mean, it's the hump day where everybody kind of, oops, gets all their, does all their networking and all their classes and stuff like that.
Well, we don't need everybody live. We can do stuff pre-recorded, and people always can watch after. I get a lot of people say they watch it afterwards, which is cool too. But
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's nice that people join us live and ask us questions and commentary and all that. But
Yeah.
do you want to introduce your friend
Sure.
or okay?
Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, the recently elected city council member for Coquille, Sheena Corbus.
Right.
Hello, everyone.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for working with me and crazy schedule with having a senior.
There you go.
You and several other people I know are really in it deep right now. It's busy season for you guys.
You're a
Yeah, I'm
busy
counting
mom
down
as
to
well,
June.
right?
Yeah, and so I have two kids and I'm on about 5 different boards right now.
What?
So I think I totaled up the last 10 weeks. I haven't had any nights just to chill. Like it's I'm just a little crazy. Brandy and I've talked about this. I need to start saying no. That's
She
not
needs to honor
well
her
in my
no.
yeah, it's not well in my vocabulary. So I like helping.
Yeah, she does.
Are you on the school board? I know you're on the city council. What other boards are you on?
No, I mean like so my youngest is in 10th grade and I'm still on PTK just because if I do financials in anything, I refuse to just hand it off to somebody when there's nonprofit stuff at Bay. Like there just there's a few things that you got to show them, like the CT12s and the 990s and the annual filings and all of that kind of stuff. And so I don't like to dump it on anyone. And so we've got that up and going. I'm in transition of handing off um, the Coquille Student Loan Fund that was inactive for a little bit. Now it's getting back up and going and done some work on contacting recipients and stuff like that. And now it's transitioning out of me, but I have a banking background, so I'll still stay on the board, but that's going to go down to an annual meeting. And then recently, my youngest decided he wanted to do trap shooting, so now I'm in with that, and then city council,
I
and
didn't know
what's the
what
other
the trap team was originally when I moved here. And
one?
I thought people were asking me to donate money to help the track team, like running. And they were like talking about guns and stuff. And I'm like, that's some backwoods
Why are you
Oregon
running
stuff
with
to have
guns?
guns. Yeah, like it did make sense to me. But yeah, that's pretty cool though that they have that program around here. I know a lot of kids involved in that now. So
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be nice. And so they have, I guess, a fall one too, but you know, football beats that out. So I don't know that we'll do the fall section, even though, I mean, Parker's not involved in football, but the majority of them are. So they could do it fall and spring, but right now it's just spring.
Lots of stuff. I don't
Yeah.
envy you. What got you involved? Like what? So did you get appointed first to the city
I
council?
so yeah, I mean, like in 2016 they had a ton of like changeover and stuff that was happening at that time. And I like my boss at that time was actually like, you should consider it. And so I think there was like 12 of us that ran or something. I'm so thankful that I didn't get
Wow.
on it at that time because there was just some medical stuff I needed to attend to with my youngest. And so I went full bore to that instead. And so it's always kind of been like an interest in the sense of like, you know, what can I do to help? What can I do to make our area better? What can I do to make this, you know, something that's not reliant on state, something that isn't where our kids want to leave. You know, when my husband and I started having kids, I wanted to stay here because it's a town, you know, everyone. Like if, you know, my kids lost on the bus, which has happened before, you know, or they accidentally get off on the wrong stop, like you're 2 clicks away from whoever they're close to. You know, you can just do a quick little text. I mean, it's a great little town, and you know, it's very family friendly in that kind of sense. And so, I mean, I don't want my kids to feel like they have to leave. I want to provide things so that they can stay and we can be communal. And so those were all the things that kind of got me interested. And I didn't know anything about it really. And so that gives me an opportunity to learn and to grow and, you know, hopefully be a better human being.
Was it kind of just something that you were like, I have a skill set and I have some passion and I think I can add value? Or was there something like specific? Was it like, hey, I know that there's this direction we're going as a city and the city council is responsible for that and I want to help change it? Was there something concrete or was it more abstract?
I think it was a little bit more abstract just because when I did join, so I ended up talking to Sam, the mayor, and was telling me, you know, like, yeah, I was actually interested a while ago. And that time I was really interested in like some of the stuff with like the ambulance and fire department and stuff like that. Um, but this time around when I ended up getting appointed and then I only think I did like a year. I did I have to run 6 months into it? Because yeah, I think I had to run 6 months into it because I've only been on city council like a year and a half. But when I yeah, so I was appointed that time, and when I was talking to Sam about it, I was just like, well, I have a bookkeeping background, banking background, underwriting background, type of stuff in the finances, but I'm also really interested in development. That for me is, you know, you just look around and you can see everything's dilapidating, and we have to figure out what that demand supply curve is with um, bringing in new homes, and then at what points do we need, you know, more businesses, more jobs, that kind of stuff, and what can we do to make it where we are like just self-sufficient. You know, it would be nice if we don't have to rely on anything else and we can just be our own town that is stable.
You're speaking Brandy's language. She's nodding a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I would
We've
love to
had
see
many
us.
talks about this. Huh?
Yeah. It's getting off of the government ticket, because when you take government money, you are limited by corporate or, excuse me, government rules. And so they'll do things like put in stipulations that frankly violate equal opportunity employment rights, like
Yep.
prioritizing one race over another. And that's for people like me who are very anti-racism and
Yep.
anti-discrimination, that is an ethical issue. And so when we don't take government money, we don't have to do things that are morally or ethically objectionable.
So how does Coquille stand on that? Like I know Coos Bay and North Bend are big on the DEI stuff, diversity, equity, inclusion. They promote all these different every time I go to a city council meeting, there's like a this is the Port Portuguese Persons Awareness Day and the I don't know, it just
Yeah.
seems like over the top. How does Coquille fall into that?
I honestly don't see any of it, or at least it hasn't been brought to my attention. But like my own family personally, we're mixed race family. We hate it. We think people should be hired for um, race should just be irrelevant. Any of that kind of stuff should just be irrelevant. It should be your skill set of what you can bring to the table, the essence of who you are as a human. You
Merit-based
know?
hiring.
Yeah.
What a
Like
crazy concept.
Right.
yeah.
We grew up in a generation that was very, like, it was hammered into us, equal opportunity, equal opportunity. Um, don't discriminate. And so now seeing some of these grant funds that have come into the city, city of Coos Bay, city of North Bend, for government contracts that stipulate minority preference, and to preference one race inherently discriminates against other races.
Yep.
And so I don't know where and it does feel performative, in my opinion, what's coming out of some of the other towns with really pushing the DEI, because we don't really live in a particularly discriminatory community for being majority white.
Right.
um People are pretty open-minded. I bring my ethnic friend, like people of color friends, I don't know, black people. I don't know like what the right thing is to call people these days, but like I
Home
bring,
friends.
yeah, I bring brown people here out to Fairview where I live, where all the like real rednecks are, and like they're embraced with open arms so enthusiastically that like some of my friends here will make it a little weird because they're like going over the top to be super, like
Yeah. Yeah.
super friendly, and I'm like, you're
The
not
community
usually
really
this
doesn't
nice.
care. Yeah. Like
Yeah, no. And so it feels really forced when you hear people talk about this stuff, like who is being discriminated against, and that's illegal. So if someone is
right.
facing race-based discrimination, like let us know who, and let us like collect some legal funds to like fight it,
Yep.
I
Yeah,
will point out
absolutely.
that we've got three white people, presumably white people, talking about how black people are not discriminated against in the community. We don't know that for sure, right? Like there
Well,
could be
I do.
someone
I have
watching
asked
who's like,
actually quite a few people.
I'm just
I've
saying,
asked
there's
around, and
yeah,
when you
there could
talk,
be
I've
somebody
had
out
lots of
there who has a
conversations about
completely
it.
different uh anecdotal view on this, right? They could
Yeah.
be living in our
Yeah.
community and they're like, this is that those people are nuts, they're blind, they're not seeing what I'm seeing because I have a different skin color and I'm treated differently. However, this is what I'm getting at. However, is solving that going to mean like is bringing a bunch of black people into our community and hiring them into positions over white people going to solve their problems? I don't think that's a solution. Does that make
Probably not.
sense? Like, I
But
don't want to discount somebody's like personal, like if they're seeing something out there, they're experiencing something that we're
Hmm.
not. I don't want to discount that. What I'll argue is like, but if you like think with your brain and your heart and like think about it, is it really going to solve it if we bring in like a bunch more people that have the same skin color as you into this community? I just don't see that as the solution, right? Like,
discrimination doesn't solve discrimination. And
right.
if someone
Like,
is treating someone badly because of their race, report them. That's a crime. And of course, yeah, I
yeah.
mean, you can be a bigot and an a-hole, and I guess it's technically not illegal, but if someone is taking opportunities away from someone because of the color of their skin, that is racism. Like it's disenfranchising a person based on the color of their skin.
Well,
And
and
there's also the issue, like I could run around and say all day that I've been denied opportunities because I'm a woman. Who could say I haven't?
I could
Now,
get
I
three
don't
guys on
fit.
here who could say you haven't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's but people do say that, and I will say that if you are a person who walks through the world and thinks that everyone around you is an asshole, you're the common denominator. So if everyone that you run into on a daily basis is a jerk, you may want to, it might not be the color of your skin, it might be your personality. Like the
Sheena, you
famous,
sound like you've got something to add.
Well, I was just thinking, like, have you seen that the study where they have women go into interviews with a scar on their face, and then right before they go into the interview, they remove the scar, and every single one of them report back that they were discriminated against, and that even comments were made about their scar, but it
yeah,
was all fallacy because the scar was removed. The
they
person
went
had
in,
no
said they
clue
were going
about
to
it.
touch it up, right? They said,
Hmm.
oh, we're going to touch it up, and they actually removed it.
Removed it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What is this? I'm still hold
it's a
on.
study.
A scar, like on their face or something?
Yeah, like a scar across the face to make them, but it's the perception of, like, if that's how you're perceiving yourself, how are you, like, you're doing things to receive that. And I feel like I've had a couple
Oh,
experiences in that
I
way
got you.
where, working at a bank, if I ask somebody ID or something, there's kind of like this little, like, why do you need my, well, it was a requirement, or maybe there was something that was needed, but sometimes there can be an undertone to it that it's like, no, I would be asking anybody this. And we've had that personally in my own family where there was somebody else who felt very discriminated against, um, because of their skin color. And I ended up having to say, like, do you think maybe it's just because you're kind of mean? Like, like, you don't present well. You're kind of, off-putting, where they always want to compare it to my husband, who is multi-race, and, he doesn't have any of those experiences, but he's also like, that's because you be nice. You smile, and you are respectable, and, like, his mom was very big about, don't talk like you're illiterate. Don't use this kind of these verbiage so that, people will treat you a certain way when you speak and hold yourself in that kind of way. And so, I think it's just is maybe they do have some experiences in my family's situation that led them to believe that. But this person, I'm not easily emotionally upset, and I would leave crying on more than one occasion because I felt so, like, just, like, disliked, and I usually
Oh,
don't care.
Wow.
And so it was to that point where I was just like, I'm really uncomfortable. So, you know, maybe it's how you carry yourself. Maybe it's not really that.
So the video that you saw was posted by Constantine Christen out of the UK, and the research was done by Robert E. Kleck out of Dartmouth University. And I found the article. It looks like it's from 1981. And yes, they did find that people can be primed to perceive discrimination, to interpret, primed to interpret their treatment as discriminatory. And that does so much damage to people when you convince them that they're being mistreated because of something that is outside of their control. You strip that person of the power to influence their environment. It's basically creating learned helplessness. It is a terrible thing to do to people. Now, on the same token, like if someone actually is being racist, turn them in, report them, blast them on social media, record them, make their life, like, blow them up. I mean, metaphorically, like, not, literally blow them up on social media. We have to be very clear here. But call them out. I hear a lot of, like, oh, well, they treated me this way because, okay, did you tell anyone? Did you report it? Did you, like, it's, so we kind of have to, I question a lot of it. Like, I've I've the I've spoke to a few people in our community who are people of color, and the resounding sentiment has been, racism is really not an issue here. Bigotry and discrimination is actually not really an issue here. You can dress however you want to dress. People might like not want to be around you because they think you're a weirdo if you're dressing like some kind of way, if you're in a furry costume, like, doing strange things. But I don't know. I feel like it kind of it hurt race relations more than anything to push these discriminatory DEI policies because it made
Yes.
people resentful. When people look around and they see a community that is pretty inviting, that is, I have personal clients, professional clients who own companies in Coos County who go out of their way to give a minority an opportunity, have admitted to me that they would
Patronizing.
patronizing.
Yeah. Like they could be doing it for the right reasons, but they could also be doing it because they're patronizing them. Like they're like,
Oh,
oh, I'm gonna like I'm gonna do all these favors for you because you're a minority. You know what I mean? Like it can go.
I guess it could be from the conversations that I've had with specific people, it's more like they appreciate diverse people and
Okay.
they want different kinds of people. And I guess race is something that you can look at and say, well, you look different. There's a lot of black people that I have more in common with than I have in common with a lot of white people. But that's kind of, for people here that's like, we don't have a lot of diversity of any kind, like racial diversity or diversity of religions, diversity of opinions. We're pretty, like homogenous, but there is research that suggests that diversity is actually not a real strength, that it actually does weaken communities. And that is super
Mhm.
controversial and upsets people immediately. But the research is researching and they're finding that more diverse communities do have more social problems. And that's not to say that they shouldn't work through those social problems, but not everything that sounds good on paper actually is good.
It is weird
Actually,
to like focus on diversity as a community instead of focusing on what brings us all here, what brought us all to, let's say, Coquille. What are the common
yeah,
binds in Coquille, like
yeah.
what brings us together. So I don't know, but we can't talk about this all night.
Moving
Sorry
on.
to that we're here talking about Coquille and all of a sudden we're talking about DEI, which is good, but I
Yeah,
just don't feel like it's probably that big of an issue as the answer in
yeah,
Coquille, which is a
No.
good thing because it, like Coos Bay had it as their like number one goal for
yeah,
their city
yeah.
council for the whole year. And it's like, come on, guys. But
Yeah,
Well,
they're a
I
and
different city.
when you consider like getting away from the government money, right? Getting away from needing government money, I really do think that like it's the government money that has made people act weird. Like when you can see people saying things and you're like, that doesn't really make sense for our community. That's like, why are we making this a big deal when, and that could be with anything, not just the racial stuff,
Well, I know for a
but
fact that North Bend did that. They admitted to doing that.
yeah,
They did a lot of
yeah,
their DEI stuff and their anti-discrimination
yeah,
policies in order to get this $4 million grant. They were trying to get David Milliron, the city administrator, was very open about that. That is like literally why they added that stuff, which is, I guess,
awful.
transparency. Yay. But like,
It's off. I mean, the fact that government money changes people's behaviors in a way that is not producing a better
changes the whole city's
outcome,
goals. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so to Sheena's point, getting us away from government money, I think is a way to stabilize markets because government money has really propped up markets that maybe should have failed. And ending the weird behaviors that come with government money stipulations and just letting the free market work itself out, to the extent that, we have federal laws that protect people. We have some really great employment laws on the books. So, um,
well, and we have a social aspect that would not stand for that either. And honestly, I've seen that even happen at the school level between the kids, and that they'll see something kind of like that going on, and socially they'll start pushing that person out until they fall in line and don't behave in that kind of way. I mean, society will also step up and say that's not okay.
I'm so proud of this next generation that's coming up. If you go and talk to young people, they
Yeah.
see right through the BS that all of these
Yep.
30 and 40-year-old like leftist women are getting sucked into and propagating to the point where they're literally like espousing racism. The kids see right through it.
They do.
And it's so cool because you know that like there's hope, you know what I mean? That they haven't been able to brainwash all of the kids, even though they've freaking designed the entire education system to do it. They haven't been able to get to all of those children, and the kids are kind of coming out of it and seeing the BS. And they're seeing that these people who are doing these things, the other kids who are espousing these ridiculous ideologies, they're not going on to become super successful. They're suffering horrible mental illnesses. They're almost unemployable in many cases, and we're seeing it in hiring, you know, and staffing, working with my clients. And so I think now young people are starting to see the products of these ideologies. And even in our community, being like, this is not good for people. Like they're seeing people kind of go down their own age, go down a bad path.
Right.
I should have done a disclaimer at the beginning of this for people who are joining us and don't know what this show is about. We're just here on a Wednesday shooting the shit, but Sheena is a city councilor from from Coquille. But I don't want people to, if you're just joining the show new and you've never seen this before, you know, like I have my own views, Brandi has her own views, so
Right.
none of our views should be reflective on Sheena. Please don't give her shit or like label her as like the DEI Coquille lady just because we're talking about it, right? So for anybody who's listening and watching, like, you know, Sheena is doing a very cool thing coming on here and engaging with the community and putting herself out there. So please respect that. And I just know that there's people who watch this and they kind of just extrapolate things a little too far. And you know, so anyway, I just want to throw it out there. I appreciate you being like open and just talking about whatever. Like that's very cool. That's not common. Not many elected officials would just come on to
Yeah,
an
I'm probably
internet
not
show live.
normal.
Hey, that's good. We need not normal people from all necks of the woods, you know, like we need talk about diversity. Like that's what we need. Diversity of thought, you know, diversity of
Yes.
background. Skin color shouldn't matter. So let's leave it at that. I wanted to bring up a thing that happened recently. This was in the news yesterday, today. It's a press release from the Coquille police. It's about a lady who got arrested. Well, many times. She was released from the jail on Sunday night. You probably can't read this, but if you go on their Facebook page, you can see this press release, either the
Yeah.
Coquille police or the Coquille, or if you type like City of Coquille into Facebook, you can see this. But this lady was released from jail Sunday night at 11:07. She's arrested the following morning, a couple hours later at 5:13 a.m., 6:20 a.m., and then 7:42 a.m. Finally is lodged in the jail again after her like third rearrest, and caused what they're totaling right now is in excess of $10,000 of damage to many businesses in the area, downtown Coquille, after she was originally released. So like in that period of being booked and released and arrested and released over and over and over. So I know we've talked about stuff like this before on the program, and I'm not putting blame on the city of Coquille or the cops. I think most of the cities are like, I don't like when people say, oh, our hands are tied, but I think like very tied. And it's an issue with our county, is
Yeah.
my take on it, is that and I think it's a really shitty thing to do to Coquille, that we have criminals from all over the county being brought in to the Coquille jail, or to the county jail, but right in Coquille there. And then they're being released because we don't have the funds designated to go to the jail. that we need to. And
Mm-hmm.
people will argue that we don't have them. I'm arguing that they're not being allocated properly, whatever. But the fact is we don't have them, and we don't have enough deputies in that jail to handle the amount of criminals we have. So anyway, so they're being booked and released for a lot of these low level crimes, but these low level crimes do damage, like literally do damage.
Yep.
Um, they bother all of the businesses right there along Highway 42 for sure, like right around the courthouse and like the laundromat. You've got Uncle Randy's, the all those restaurants and stores around there. It's terrible. So with that, is there like totally
Yeah,
open-ended? I mean, like, you've got to be frustrated. The city's got to be frustrated about that.
we are. We absolutely are. And at the last meeting, somebody came and spoke about it. And I, I like, because I work a lot, I'm not out and about a ton to see this, but in the mornings, I go over to Coffee Connection, grab a coffee there, and there's many times where you can see him being released. And there's been a lot of times where um, Ashley's been like, don't let that person in here. They're causing menace. So like I'll stand in front of the door and block them from coming in. And I've had
That's
that
unacceptable.
lady, I actually called the cops on the other night because we're pretty close to downtown. And at first I thought, is like, did my neighbor fall? Like I heard this like yelling, and I have an elderly neighbor that lives next door, and I'm just thinking, gosh, like, did she fall? Is she okay? And I wake up with almost anything. And so I'm like getting up and I'm like, what is that sound? And I can hear it repeating. And I think this was my, so Sunday night. Yeah. And I looked and it was 1:05 a.m. I ended up calling 911, and I go to my bathroom and I open up the window because we have a bathroom on our second story or half second story, whatever it is. But so I open up the window and I can hear somebody just like yelling. And then there's these loud booms going off, and then and it's not like, I mean, it's loud like a gun, but it's not a gun sound. And then occasionally I'd hear like metal drop and hit the ground. And so I called 911 and I was like, hey, I'm pretty close to 911 dispatch. Can you guys hear this? Like, can you hear what I'm hearing? And like, this is what I'm thinking it is. And they're like, can you tell if it's a guy or girl? I said, I think it's female. You know, there's these loud booms. I'm pretty sure it's coming from in front of the courthouse or maybe even First Community's parking lot. Um, but like the shouting is just like repeated. I mean, it's enough for me to wake up at 1 a.m. And so I called and I reported it. And then people started talking about like how many other times they were like, yeah, we're going to go take a look at it. And I think she ended up making her way down to Coos Curry, and I know she's in at the courthouse harassing everyone and screaming, throughout the day. And this, she's not a local. She's not one of our people that has fallen on hard times,
I was
you
wondering
know.
about that because they call her a local transient. I was wondering, like, where did this person come from?
I think she's from Coos Bay.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I mean, I don't know from before that, but I know that a lot of people talk about her doing damage in Coos Bay, and I'm
yeah,
sure
no,
that's where
she's
she was originally
here.
arrested.
Yeah. Well, and I had another night where I was out in my car and I was just talking late with a friend on the phone. And I just pulled a late night. And so I was decompressing with them. And my oldest came, he drove by from work, and it was like 9:30 maybe. And I rolled down the window and I was like, hey, honey. And then he goes and he gets into the house. Well, I see something come up. I pull up my window back up and I see something come up, and I hear the back handle jiggle. And I'm thinking, I'm just like in the zone with talking with my friend. I'm thinking, oh, it's just probably one of my kids, right? So I unlock the car. Don't do that. That was not smart. And then all of a sudden, like, I see my friend on the phone, and she's like, and I look back behind me and I'm staring this lady right in the eyes. She's in the back seat of my car, seeing what she, can try and take. And I'd like just like look at her and I'm like, you need to shut that door right now.
Was this
And
the
she
same lady that was just a,
that was like
okay,
maybe probably closer to a year ago. But I ended up
that's
taking like pictures
crazy.
of her and like posting it on Facebook, going like, "Here's the lady that got in my car." Because I was like, "What did I
So
just?" I just assumed it was one of my kids coming up to,
that's
Mom, what are you doing on
crazy.
the phone? And stuff. And I was just like, uh,
Do you think this person was crazy or were they actually trying to
yes.
steal stuff?
No,
Okay, just
I think she was
batshit
like,
crazy.
yes, yeah, I think she was legit crazy. I think I'll have to find it because I know I posted it on Facebook at that time where I was like, well, my heart just stopped. This just happened. Like, this is a little crazy. And it's increasing. I can't imagine what our business owners are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Like, I, I'm usually not at home a ton. I'm out doing other things or meetings or whatnot, or I'm working late. And I can't imagine what other people are seeing that are having to deal with this on a 9 to 5. I think it's completely horrific. We had at city council, we were really concerned about that because they were bringing in a drunk tank where um, I think where the juvenile department used to be at the county. And that was some questions that we asked explicitly, like, because we didn't get a say in that coming here. And it's supposed to be on the entity that brings it in to bust it in. And it's like $500,000 a year to operate this. And and if you go and you watch that, you will hear me ask a lot of questions where I was like, so how much is this costing per person? What are your rates of, getting them into rehab? And it sounds like that they have high rates. I don't know about the reoccurrences. There was some data they didn't have for me, but like, what is, like, you need to tell me about this. And so from the math that I could do, it's like $5,000 a person is what what it ends up getting to be for this drunk tank service. And it's supposed to alleviate, essentially, like, you're saving the money because it's like in saving expenses off of like the officer side. So, and they're only responsible for keeping there until they're sober enough to be functional. So you're talking about somebody that's habitually throwing up on themselves, that's what these people are caring for. And that's here in Coquille. But all of the entities, Coos Bay, North Bend, have to drive them over, and it's voluntary. So if they decide a half hour later that they don't want to be here, are they being released into Coquille? Are we getting this as a bigger problem? Because
Yeah.
I'm thankful that we're the county seat. That's amazing, but like, there couldn't have been a place over in Coos Bay where this is going to be utilized more,
Yeah, I
or
thought that was total
available.
bullshit that they didn't center that in the Coos Bay North Bend area. That's where the majority of that sort of stuff happens, and it would make so much sense. And they have
I'm
public
sure they
buildings that
could
they could
have.
use for it.
Yep.
Um, I will say that the funding, I believe, was supposed to come entirely from the opioid settlement funds, um,
Yes.
which is still our tax dollars, or
Right.
I guess technically, I mean, it's like it was a lawsuit and then a settlement, so it goes to the state. But like it's all supposed to be for, um, you know,
And
improving
I just,
our way of life.
yeah.
But
And there's a much better way instead of a drunk tank, to spend that money. Like, have you ever heard of Amen Clinics? Amen Clinics, I did this with my son. We paid out of pocket, not covered by insurance, $5,000 to get his brain scanned and understand how, in his world, his ADHD affects him and what we can do with actual data. And Daniel Amen is the doctor. Like, you can find TED Talks on him. He's phenomenal. Um, but he can point to, like, hey, this is maybe why, like, you're having these kind of issues. That would solve our homeless problem way quicker. It would be expensive, as but we waste money in so many other ways. That would
I mean,
actually give
we're
people true data.
well, and like we've got like the death by a thousand paper cuts thing happening, so that would at least
Yep.
like tack away at some of it. And we just interviewed a lady in Lakeside who was homeless. We went to one of the encampments there, and she was talking. We asked her a bunch of questions about drug use, and one of the main reasons she was saying she uses meth was, and she says a lot of the people in these homeless camps use it is to deal with ADHD. And it
100%.
helps them focus and stuff like that. So you're absolutely right. That actually makes a lot of sense. Use those funds towards something that might be able to actually get to like the root of the problem with these people and
Well, and
help
it's a
them through
one
it.
and done, like you don't have to do it again. It's a one and done. And that's the thing is the issue is with ADHD, it's your dopamine center is downplayed. So you're looking at anything, and that's why a lot of them will get violent even if they're on the ODD spectrum, is because like they're looking for conflict to get the spike in their dopamine center. And
Oh,
so
wow.
they turn to drugs a lot of the time, and so there's really simple solutions for a lot of it, and not a lot of it actually needs medication. They have like a whole slew of things that you can do naturally that will increase and help with that kind of stuff. Or like this might be a little bit off topic, but like, the schools, we were talking earlier about, what you have to do in order to get the government funding. Well, we're considered a full Title I school. Well, if you have everybody who can't read properly, and so what do? You stick them in Title I and you help them read slower and you help them read more. There's no testing for Erlin syndrome. And Erlin syndrome is very simple to fix. You just get a colored sheet that will bring the letters in line to them,
Hmm.
and you put that over the paper. It's a $10 fix off of Amazon. And there's things like we had, like if you're hitting really low on comprehension when you read, less than 30 sessions of speech therapy will fix that. They have a speech therapist
Yeah.
at the school, or you can referral out. And none of these kids are ever being offered that as a referral center. We went through vision therapy with my youngest, and that's how I found out about the fact that it will solve for comprehension. He was really struggling with his comprehension, and in 30 sessions of speech therapy, we did not need to have that addressed when we did his vision therapy.
Oh.
And then we ended up doing his vision therapy, and that brought him up to grade level on everything. We didn't get that as a solution, or did, like, the amount of digging that you have to do to find out those as pathways. Like, they don't even talk to each other. Or, if you're on the ADHD spectrum, what about executive functioning? That can be done through occupational therapy. None of these things are recommended as a solution, and instead we're going to say, let's do Title I. You'll pay us more money. And it's not fixing the issue. It's not fixing the issue at all.
A
It's
lot
not
of
One,
going
it
what
to
you're
too is
improve the
addressing
teaching.
is like we don't need a drunk tank. We need a rehab center like that has
Right.
people who are actually going to work long term with folks. So sorry, Brandy, I
Yeah.
cut you off.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Sheena, a lot of this is your parenting though. Because
Yeah.
the schools, even if the schools offer all of these solutions, if a kid is going home to an environment with a drug addicted or alcoholic,
Yeah.
abusive, screaming, yelling, breaking things, the odds are stacked against them so badly. And that's where a lot of these behavioral problems start. The vast majority, and those issues are probably very real, but you can't, like, they would probably give the kids a way better chance. That combined with some counseling around mitigating the effects of violence that they can't or abuse
Yeah.
that they can't escape because these
Yep.
kids can't get away. And so teaching children, like, you can't control what goes on around you right now, but here very, very soon you will be able to. And so just kind of like giving them that treatment that gives them the chance to break that generational cycle of behavioral dysregulation.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I had, with my position at PTK, they'd asked us at one point about, what could they spend grant money on? And I said, why don't we get like a liaison for you guys for vision therapy? because the vision therapy stuff, you actually do it at home anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes a day. They're 1 minute, they're simple 1 minute things. You know
Oh,
how
that's
often they give
cool.
them like something to color on? Like there's things that they could do to easily strengthen it. And it's things like you go under a P and over a Q, and how many lines can you get in a minute? Can you take a highlighter from here to help with your depth perception? And maybe you have a yellow on one side and a pink on the other side, and you have to get it in this little circle on the paper.
Oh,
Give it, I mean, like there's very simple solutions like that, and so that's what I threw up. It never came to fruition, but those would be things that would actually be solutions. It seems
yeah.
a little weird and a little off, but like,
If it works,
It's
it's not weird.
yeah. But
it's the
would it
harder
also not
answer, but
mean,
it seems like it's the right answer.
well, and it also would mean like you wouldn't need Title I funding. We wouldn't need to be registering as a special. Essentially, you're registering as a school that cannot read. Like that's hard. We have so many kids that are deficient in reading. We need special funding. That's what that Title I is.
The statistics out there aren't great for Oregon right now
Yeah,
for reading and writing and all the
yeah.
all the things like across the board. But to bring it back to the crime issue, like it's such bullshit that Coquille has to bear the burden of all those criminals coming in and getting booked and released. Like, is there like you've lived in Coquille how long?
Almost all my life. So my um, grandparents were here, and my mom moved up to Alaska. I was born there, and then I came back when I was 3, and I'm 40 now. So
So, like, if you could draw a graph, is it like in terms of like the impact from the crime, you
Mhm.
know, is it consistent with what you grew up with? Is it getting
No.
worse? Like, how about the past couple years or the past couple months? I mean, are we like on an exponential or is it just steady?
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think the last handful of years definitely has been way worse. Um, when I used to work at Umpqua Bank here in town locally, and when I went to Banner, and some of that's the metrics that they had in place at Banner, I had seen more fraud working there here in Coquille at Banner than I did at my 9 years at Umpqua in 2.5 years at Banner. And it just like has continued to go up. And some of that's just, you know, do you do a credit check? Do you have requirements for your accounts? I mean, that type of stuff's gonna weed out certain type of activities. But yeah, I definitely feel I mean, I remember I've never had to call the cops on so many people as when I worked at Banner with the amount of fraud. Never in my life. And by this time I was 9 years, actually 11 years in banking by that point. And like that was very unnerving to me. I wasn't used to that. Um, and I can see where it's increased. And right now, especially like with some of the examples that I shared with the transients and stuff like that, like it's increasing more. And the last person that came and spoke about it at city council, it's very concerning. I don't know fully. I'm not the guru on the board that knows about, like we have quite a few others that have previous fire and ambulance background, police background that sit on our board. I'm the numbers geek. I'm sorry guys. Like that's not my forte, but like I would love to be creative and find a solution so that Coquille isn't burning that and our citizens are not paying for other people's bad decisions.
Yeah, it's twofold though. You got to understand the problem before you can start to even fix it. But yeah, a lot
Right.
of the fraud is like these people going around, they're stealing mail out of mailboxes, checks, things
Yep.
like that, like whole checkbooks. They'll take out of the mailbox and they'll sell them for drugs or whatnot. So it's not even like the person committing the fraud is just somebody who, got a
Yep.
hold of the checkbook from someone who they sold drugs to. It's crazy. Um,
Yep.
I deep dived into it because I started seeing at all the local businesses, um,
Hmm.
they're not accepting checks anymore. So I would just ask them like, "Oh, why?" And like every single one was like, "Well, here's a picture of this person and here's another person." And the one, it was actually like the same person, it seemed. I ended up tracking down the Coos Bay police officer was working on the case, and I ended up going to the lady's house and like asking her about the checks and what she knows about it. And what was interesting is you have a Coos Bay police officer working on the main case, but you have it happening in Bandon and Coquille and Myrtle Point, and they're not working together. I mean, like they are, like if
Right.
they pick up the phone, but like there's no comment, there's no like Dropbox file where they're all sharing, images from all the different stores. And this lady though she was the Dropbox file because she
Oh,
was working with all of them, so she was able to help me. I was just honest with her. I'm like, I'm just some rando person, who went
yeah.
to a store in Myrtle Point and got on the case, but I'm not like official. I'm not with the police or anything. I'm not a private investigator, but she was totally cool with like me helping out. And I ended
That's
up
awesome.
identifying the person. Oddly enough, the person died. They were in the hospital and they died weeks after.
Whoa.
So I don't know if that's karma or what, but very weird situation. But it sucks. I mean, it just was like this, and she got away with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was weird because they didn't actually know who it was. They had all this camera footage of her and they couldn't figure out who this lady was. But once you put it all together, I was able to figure it out. But a lot of times they know who these people are and they still can't do anything, or they'll go to
Right.
jail and they'll get
Yeah.
released and they'll go through, or it's like under a certain dollar amount, so it's a low level misdemeanor. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So that's, I mean, 100%, like what you're experiencing at the bank is not a fluke. It's wild. And
Yep.
so that's the problem. But yeah, how do we fix this? Like, what the heck, like, do we lock them all up? Do we send them to rehab? How do you rehab somebody who steals checks out of mailboxes? Like, what do we do?
Right.
I don't know. I'll throw that at you guys. What do we do?
I've got some ideas. I want to hear what Sheena has to say.
Well, I mean, we need to have capacity for some harsher punishments, for one. I mean, I'm definitely, I'm pretty high compassion for the most part, but I also have a pretty high amount of assertiveness. But like, it just, no, if you've infringed on somebody else's rights, you should have some repercussions of that. And it shouldn't just be this catch and release. I mean, I understand the hardship that the county is underneath with everything. I completely get that. But like, even, I don't think it's solvable necessarily at county level. I think this requires state overhaul. I think what we see happening with our federal, everything going on right now needs to happen at every state high level. Like, I'm not one that I don't believe that like the people who are serving on all of our committees and boards and stuff like that, like, I mean, we're all volunteers on ours, but even commissioners being paid and stuff, I don't think that they're ill-intended. I think that there's a lot of hand tying and that they're trying to do the best that they probably can. And I think government intentionally puts in a lot of red tape that, when we talk about development later on, that'll be a little bit more that we can definitely get into with that. That's just a little crazy town to me. But, I think it needs like state overhaul. And I definitely think that our budgets need to be revamped in a way that the state is getting a percentage of how good we are doing, because at least the monies spent here locally are actually benefiting us locally. There's no reason for the state to have the kind of budget that they have. There's no reason for us to be paying into everything, like everything that we do pay into them. Like, we shouldn't have, I mean, like, ideally we shouldn't even have income tax from them. It should just be them getting a little bit of chump change to run certain things like DHS and state police and
Department of Ag.
yeah,
I mean, if they
Yeah,
have
there's
millions
like
of dollars for these grant programs, then they're too rich, right? If we have
absolutely.
criminals
it's
being
so
booked and
much more
released
than
all day, every
millions.
day into Coquille, and they're handing out multi-million-dollar grants to
And
municipalities all around the
we have
state.
to beg for that money back. oh, we'll dance for you this way. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. Like,
Yep.
we
That's
have to beg
crazy.
for that money back.
I'll
I
take
heard,
your money and then force you to compromise your ethics to get it back.
yep. And I didn't fact check this, but I heard somebody was talking on Facebook that I do trust. And she was talking about, like, are you aware of how much actually goes? And then they just, like, they gave the example of school. Out of all the money that we send up there for our school, that we charge here for our school, they only get like 12% back.
Yep.
The state keeps the rest of it. And I'm just like,
Why?
no, it should be the other way.
Right.
Here's your 6%. You
Yes.
do with that. We can't, we just, I think that whole thing just needs to be overhauled.
They have these equalization formulas. They have it for the schools and the community college, and they're very confusing. Like, you look at they're like 150-page documents that explain it, and then like in the middle of it, there'll be like charts, like flow charts, and there's arrows going all over the place, and it's super convoluted and weird. I've tried to understand it. I think I'm like 95% there. My take on it is like, the idea is like, put all the tax dollars, and they don't actually, from what I know, they don't actually take the tax dollars. Like, if you put money in the mail and send it to the treasurer in Coquille, it literally stays in Coquille. But that number, the figure, they tally all these figures up for all the schools in the state, and they put it in a bucket, and then they add some state funds as well, and that's the big pool of money. And then they redistribute those numbers, not the actual money, the numbers they redistribute based on how many students you have at the school. Then if the number that you're supposed to get for your school is more than the property taxes that you're bringing in, you actually get money from the state. And if the number that they tell you should be receiving is less than what you have collected with property taxes, in that instance is when you send it to the state. So that's my understanding of it. So it's not in every case that you're sending money, and it's not in every case that you're receiving money, but it's supposed to equalize it so that like all the schools are on the equal footing. And it's actually supposed to help rural areas, but it's so convoluted, and it's very hard for a normal person to understand that. And then and
it just
they
shouldn't be that
confuse people.
complex. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it should not need to be that complex. Anything that is above board is pretty simple. And there's just a way, I'm sure, to very simplify that if there really isn't laundering going on.
One, it just makes you reliant on the state. And then if you really want to get into it with urban renewal areas, they'll claim, oh, well, we can keep this urban renewal area going because the state, they call it backfilling, like, oh, it backfills the money from the state, so it doesn't impact schools. This doesn't hurt our schools. It's like, it's such a scam. Is really what it is, in my opinion, when you start looking into it. And I actually I wonder if, okay, so if you get this number, this magic number from the state that says this is how much your school is supposed to have in funding, but we're going to subtract the property taxes you're collecting. Like, well, what if like the Coquille School District just decided not to collect property tax for the school district? Aren't you still supposed to get the money from the state? Or if like you cut your property taxes in half, if you like, would you right? Aren't you still supposed to be getting that money from the state? I don't know how that works. So
Some of the
neither.
property
That's a question
tax
I
is
had.
mandated by the state. There is $1.80 on the 1,000, I want to say, that is levied by the county. I think I would have to double check my numbers, but I think it's $1.80 that is levied by the county that the county can choose not to implement. And that was the idea, that we would implement the sales tax in lieu of that $1.80 property tax. There would still be a property tax as implemented by the state, that the state collects off of our property. But that was the way they would rework that sales tax in lieu of the property tax, or vice versa, however you spread the way to say that. And so that would distribute that money that we're all paying in property taxes to our other populations who are not currently contributing, to our social systems that, all of our tourist visitors and whatnot like to
Right.
enjoy.
It would be nice to have an expert on here someday to like go through all that. Like, I don't know, could we have an assessor maybe? Is there a county
Maybe.
assessor around who could explain all this?
I know one of them. I can reach out to one of them and see if he would come and talk to us, or he probably would. He's a super cool dude. Yeah,
That's
we
funny.
probably could.
No, it's confusing stuff, and the numbers are crazy. It would be cool to sit down and have like a meeting of the minds and see if there's something we could do, because we got to figure something out. The situation, is not
Right,
any one person's fault. Like you mentioned, the county commissioners. It's like, um, I do think I think they're doing the best job they can at this point. I think I had higher expectations for them when I got political about 2 years ago, but at this point, I think knowing who they are, they're doing the best darn job they can. I just feel that we need people in there that can do a better job. Like, I hope they don't take that personally. It's just like, they've done their work in their wheelhouse, and this is where we are, and we need different people to try something new, because we're not getting anywhere. We've been going in one direction for, I think, about 20-30 years here in the area, and that's my 2 cents on and it's definitely a state issue too, right?
Hmm.
Like how do you, but how do you get the state to change? You could do it like at the grassroots level and elect people to state positions, but I think you also need to put the heat on them, right? I think we need politicians here with louder voices, like that are, putting a lot of heat and a lot of pressure on the state to make changes, not just like coddling them and doing these like PR events where, oh, we love you because you're giving us this grant, right? We're going to do some like
Right.
PR events. So things have to
Yeah,
change, right?
it needs to be a both and.
We would like to see leaders who, this is going to sound kind of counterintuitive and maybe objectionable, but I think we need more constructive conflict among our local leaders. We need people who are emotionally mature enough to understand that just because people disagree with each other doesn't mean that they have to dislike each other. We all need to be able to criticize our leaders without disliking them. And our leaders need to be able to disagree with each other and call each other out and be kind of, not antagonistic, but confrontational, and saying like, this is wrong, this isn't good for our community, without the assumption bleeding over into, well, you just hate that person,
Yeah.
or you're
Yep.
just against that person. Like, no, I really like, as some of the people that I've criticized, but I wouldn't be authentic if I refuse to criticize people just because I like them, professionally, just because I like them as a person. That's not fair. And I
Right.
think that's what we have going on in our county. We have people trying way too hard to not ruffle any feathers. And I think we just have to kind of like be willing to ruffle.
If
I
you
like the word you used, authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to wrestle it out, you're never going to understand. Like, it's going to be a straw man effect. It's
Yeah.
going to, you're going to continue to prop up your own position because you're refusing to allow somebody to like heat check it. And it's just going to continue to have ideas that um, essentially get perverted, not necessarily in that level of a way, but it's just because you're
Yeah.
not having enough outside input put in, and things will just continue to
Yes.
fall apart at that point.
We should do a happy hour like once a month with all the leaders in the area, and upon entry, you have to do 2 shots and slap someone, and that's just how we get going, you know.
I'd
And
do
then
it.
we
I'm
might solve
in.
more problems that way. right?
Choose wine instead of hard alcohol. I mean,
I think that's how
Yeah,
they used to do
yeah.
it when our country was founded. I mean, like I think
That
they used to
sounds
just go to
very
bars and
American.
just argue about shit and figure it out that way.
I mean, I
Well, I know
believe
I
for
it.
a
don't know.
fact that's how the Marine Corps got started. So
That's
founded
funny.
in a bar, but
Well, what can people
17.
do to help you and the city council in Coquille? Like if you could wave a magic wand and have 100 people do blank, like what would it be? Like what could we
Well,
do?
the only thing that I really can think of is just the so cliche of just getting involved. Right now, I think we have 14 open seats between all of our committees, and we have one on city council included into that 14. And there's, I think there's a seat or two even open on our planning board, but there's 10 on budget committee. There is quite a few, I mean, there's just quite a few open. One of that is we need to, most of the committees, you don't actually have to be within city limits. I think budget committee and city council, you have to be within city limits for, which puts me out where I'm like, everybody that I know that I could talk to being involved are outside of city limits, And so, yeah, exactly. And like, or people that I know that have financial backgrounds that would be good for budget committee. I believe that one has to be inside city limits. And so I don't know if that's something that's like a charter that we could eventually change or how all of that works. Like I'm still learning how that pathway goes and what we would need to do to kind of overhaul some of that and what's priority, right? But yeah, that or even coming um to the meetings, like if we're not hearing from people, we don't know what's on their, like what's the top priority to them. We won't know what's on their hearts and minds, and or even a way to think of, like, we have hopefully the Jefferson, I think we're going to be looking at that contract, I believe this next council. Um, and so the Jefferson School District, that's up in what everyone calls like the White Cloud area on 17th and Ivy, I think. Um, or Hemlock might be the other access to. Like that's getting developed. That's going to be, we believe, 11 homes. Um, and we're trying to get things like that moving so that there's places here that are being developed that will bring in more people. We had a study done, and more than 50% of our people that work here, come to work here, leave every night because they can't live here. There's just a shortage of houses, and we have to get some of those solutions going. But, is that something that's high priority to a lot of people? Like that's definitely on to me. Is there, like there was a couple of people coming and talking about the Fifth Street park, and that there's an issue with the parking there or certain stop signs that need to be in place. And there's stuff like that where I'll drive around and I'll be like, I don't like that intersection. But, we don't know if it's high priority to people unless they come and talk to us. And I know that our area is also pretty resistant to change. As there are things that are being built, that's a big pain point for a lot of people. But like the reality is we're never going to be a big town. That isn't what we're designed to be, but we could definitely be a town that is bigger and self-sufficient. Maybe we can be creative and bring in or get the county on board or other cities on board where we can actually develop Coos County into something meaningful, bringing in maybe good quality developers that would also have connections to good, solid jobs that could come in and help support our area and make this a vibrant place for our citizens globally, for Coos County at least.
You touched on like public involvement, coming and getting involved in committees and stuff, and like sometimes they don't fit into the criteria for that committee. And my experience with that, and in Coos Bay and North Bend, you'll like show up, you have an issue that you want to talk about, and right then and there, they're not very welcoming. It sounds like Coquille is a little different, which is awesome. But and then sometimes they'll point you to a committee, and then you find out you can't be on it, and they just like the vibe is like they're really trying to find a way for you to shut up and not be
Right.
involved. So I trust you. You seem like a trustworthy and authentic person. So like what you're saying makes sense to me, and I believe that it is something that the city of Coquille is like appreciative of, is like people getting involved. So I would hope that other cities start like looking at you guys and go, hey, like that's working for them. Maybe we should try that out. Like maybe,
Yeah.
because it's like you get somebody who comes in, they're super passionate about something. Like, and maybe it's something that like you don't even really care about, or it's a problem that you don't want to solve because you have too much on your plate. But whatever, they come in and they're bothering you. But like to turn around and make them feel like you don't want them there is like such a shitty thing. And
It
it's not
is.
just me. It's like I get this all the time from people. I think somebody just wrote it in the comments. Like here's Bo. He says like what deters people from speaking up is mayors like Engelke from North Bend that hush you under the guise of decorum when we bring up serious matters. And it like that's a thing, and I'm not, well, I can
Yeah.
pick on her, whatever. North Bend is driving me nuts right now. But it's like you gotta find a way to say like you're welcome here, and what you're saying matters, and we're going to figure out a way to get you involved. And if it's on a committee and you don't meet the criteria, like I hate this, oh, you didn't meet the criteria so you can't be involved. No, you can come, we're going to make an advisory role. You're not going to be able to vote, but like we want you at the meeting. We want you to be able to give your opinion. If you want to put together a PowerPoint and show us, like you can like find a way to get their passion on board with a way to, like a solution, right? Like it
Yeah.
kills me when I see these people try and speak up and they're just shoved away, like on
Yeah.
all, like, so I don't know. That was
Absolutely.
a rant
Because
over.
no, I like it.
Good rant.
Because like we're not looking for perfect people, we're looking for a perfect team, right? Like we have to have people that are like able to work together, but also able to challenge each other. Because if you don't have that, that's how your group gets perverted and it gets too introspective and it doesn't get enough of the feedback that you need to make sure that you're actually on track. And
Yeah.
if you don't have those people in there to keep those checks and balances in place, the whole thing will crumble. And so for me, I actually, this kind of gets maybe put off a little bit wrong, but I always say, like, I like the hit back. I like it when people want to like hit back at me a little and go, well, have you thought about this? I'm like, no, have you thought about this because of this or this or this? Because that's the only way that you're going to be able to test out these ideas ahead of time and make sure that you're not shooting yourself in the foot when you go to implement them. Because if you want to be arrogant about it, and I think that's one big issue that we have globally with our political leaders, is that none of them are okay enough to say, that thought did not play out how we thought this policy would. Let's undo that. No, they don't ever say that. Like, we have to have people that are able to kind of be humble enough to go, that was great in theory, right? Like utopia, but like that is not reality. And reality and how people actually behave, those don't always jive together. Like we think that they're going to behave a certain way, but human nature shows us a difference, and we often choose to ignore that instead of going over like, oh, like this just, sorry, I'm getting so many text messages, guys. I'm trying to get them swiped away. PTK is blowing up right now. we're,
Oh
we're
no.
trying to plan a carnival. But
Hey.
yeah, it'll be good. But and so those are just some of the issues that I see. And if you're hushing people and if you're not allowing them to talk and express themselves authentically, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're choosing to keep a blind eye to something that could have avoided it. And your friends will tell you the truth first. And if they don't tell you the truth and you don't listen, then it's going to be your enemies and it's not going to be fun how that comes out.
Yep. And
Like,
that's exactly what we're seeing. When a leader will not allow, and this is, specific context where these are people who are paid with our tax dollars, right? And
Right.
so they're not like the boss at our company where we have to do what they say. And for people who want that environment, I would suggest that they leave politics and go like work in the corporate world. Because in politics, when you tell your taxpayers that you're not going to listen to what they have to say, they yoink their vote right away from anything you put on the ballot. And it was literally a shoot yourself in the foot year for North Bend. They've been told over and over and over, you have to listen to people that disagree with you, and they doubled down on shutting people down, and this is a consequence, and it sucks for the people of North Bend. um Not impressed with the
Well,
recent
people disengage.
unfoldings.
Like you have somebody who's
Yeah.
passionate about something. Like let's say you completely disagree, right? You're gonna like Brandi and I, we're gonna completely disagree on something, but I can tell that you are like incredibly passionate about it. Why would I just like give you the middle finger so you could like you're not gonna lose your passion because I tell you to F off. You're gonna go and take that passion and you're probably gonna become my nemesis and try and fight every maneuver I try and make. And it's like it's crazy and it's so unproductive. You use the word constructive, right? Like that, yeah, we need to be more constructive. And it's even
Well,
as simple as that like 3 minute timer thing. Like you come to a meeting, I get it, right? Like we need to have some sort of structure for a meeting. We can't let people like me talk forever and ever and ever. It's not a good thing for anybody. But
same.
like the 3 minute thing, like the one in North Bend is a little better because they have this like timer in front of you so you can like see your own time. But like in Coos Bay, you'll be talking, right? And you're like, you just got up there to like talk about something that like you've been really some people are making their first comment ever. They've thought about something for 10 years. Something's been digging into their skin for 10 years, and they're coming there to try and finally get some assistance. And they're nervous, they're not great at public speaking. And
Ugh.
2 minutes in, you've got this a-hole lawyer on the left
1 minute
who
left.
just goes,
Yeah.
1 minute, crazy.
So
And then at 3 minutes, he goes, you're done. And like it's like they pile on you like a rugby match, and you got to get the hell out of there. And it's just that the tact is so off.
right.
Like you can find a way to gently let somebody know what their time is because they need to like you can't expect random citizens to know how to manage time. Like even
See them know the
professionals,
procedures and the
like
policies, and yeah, they're just trying to participate.
yeah,
Right.
and like they're trying to get their passion out. They're not trying to manage time properly, and like you can't expect them to. So like to I don't know. I think there can be more to do with like the 3 minute thing. Like okay, at 3 minutes, I'm gonna like I just want to let everybody know in the room at 3 minutes, whenever you're talking, I'm gonna interrupt you a little bit. And if it's something that we can like talk about later, I'm gonna let you know. And
Framing.
for
Yeah,
some
yeah.
people something like just there's got to be a better way. And if it's
Yeah.
something that like someone's really hot, like a hot topic, be like, look, I get it, you're really passionate, but we have a bunch of other people. Like just be more authentic with people. And they know who the combative people are, and I've been
Yeah.
one of them before, so like they know me, right? Like how hard would it be to like talk to me before the meeting, to like disengage and
Right.
get some of that air out, right? Like, how hard would it be even right before the meeting to come up and be like, Chris, are you going to talk? Do you need like 5 minutes? If we gave you 5 minutes, can we compromise? Would that be better? And like, I've actually done that with Jessica. I asked her, but I did it. It's like she didn't come to
Right.
me. Like I had to go up and Jessica, I have this speech. I've taken out as many words as possible, and I've timed it. If I race through it, it's 3.5 minutes. If I race through it and I sound like a crazy person, can I please have 4 minutes to not sound crazy and to get my full point across so I'm not misinforming people? And she
Right.
allowed it, but the one time. So, anyways, I've been talking a lot. Sheena, you
No, no,
seem like
you're
you
good.
got stuff on your mind. Let us
Well, no,
have it.
I was gonna say like so Sam, our mayor he's really great with that. I don't know about like the 3 minute, like how often they can let it go over, or I don't know about that. Like I'm not very procedural personally. Like I'm just kind of more of a, like casual on that kind of sense. And but so they have those pieces, but what he does is after anybody comes to talk, he always goes to talk to them one on one after the meeting is over. And,
That's awesome.
you know, wants to make sure, even like maybe if he's not voting in a way that they want him to vote or something like that, that he is, you know, connecting with them and having a conversation, or explaining maybe the reasons why he might have said no to something, or what this or that might be. You know, and so like that's a very valuable piece. The council that we have now is really great. They all of them have kind of came in after like a period of turmoil, and they've been doing a lot of things to get things turned around so that we have extra transparency. We have our transaction record printed, you know, so that, and we're still trying to catch up on budgets from, like, I think we're 3 years behind, but we were 3 years behind. It just takes a long time to get those audited and all caught up. And so, you know, we're trying to do everything we can to get things as transparent as possible, as voice friendly as possible. You know, none of us are really easily offended by the fact that people might not agree with us. I mean, I'm sure there's things that about me that people are going to be like, you either love me or you hate me. That's totally fine. You know, some people will say I'm the nicest thing. Others will call me a B word. They're both right. Just, they're both right. It's fine. But like, they, you know, you got to have it where people feel free to talk. Because if they don't feel free to talk and they can't share with you what's going on, and in whatever fashion that looks like, I don't like it if somebody's being like really rude or disrespectful, but you know, you can be loud with me as long as you're not like, you know, which if you look on what's happening in Coquille or whatever, we're all idiots and mouth breathers or whatever, you know, the situation might be at the time. But like, you have to have a thicker skin, you know, as long as I'm not being like people can be loud with me, as long as I'm not being yelled at, my defenses will remain down. But like, I don't care what fashion it's being said in, because if they're just showing passion, great. Keep that up, because the moment that fizzles out, the moment you lose your entire people. And so I just think that like, you have to be able to hold space. You have to go into this position understanding like people are going to disagree with you, and that's totally fine, or they're not going to understand you, and that's totally fine, but you have to be able to let them talk. And that's a big one for me. If people, employees included, like if they are not, if they don't feel safe enough to go to any of the council members to talk and tell them what's going on, or you know, their own thoughts, or how they see that they can improve, then we failed. We've already failed before we've gotten started. We have to have conversation. We have to have people feeling transparency and being heard without fear of any kind of retaliation, whether or not we agree. And so that's, I don't know, that's my rant, I guess.
You've got a great
Good one.
mentality.
Yeah.
Like, can we clone you? You know, like, can you advise other city councils? I don't know. I've just met you. I like literally we've never talked before this except through Messenger. But you know, the comments coming in are very favorable. You've got some super fans out there, and
They're
but
the ones who
no, it's
think
like
we're
you.
nice.
Liked for
There you go.
for a reason. Yeah.
But you're right. We got to be able to like, you got to be able to talk with people you disagree with, and you've got to be like, I went to a city council meeting once, and it was heated, and there was one side and the other. And right after the meeting, I went up to the other side, and I was like, guys, like, what the heck, you know? And we just engaged right away and started like going at it. But then like an hour and a half later, we ended up like becoming like friends, like frenemies,
Right,
maybe, you
right,
know?
right,
And
right.
it's like, I'm the vice chair of the Republican Party. This one guy, main guy I was engaging with is, yeah, I don't think he's on their executive board, but he's in very tight with the Democrat Party. It's like you'd think we would never be able to be in the same room, and like we've met multiple times since then, have had great conversations. We
Yep.
disagree on a lot of stuff, but there are some things we agree on, and we're there to help each other on those things that we agree on, and
It
get into
really
the
is
weeds on the
such a
stuff we
small
disagree on.
piece. Yeah, and it's such a small piece of who people are, you know, and that's the thing is like at the end of the
Yes.
day, like I think politics can be polarizing. I am definitely one of those that like my personality just likes extremes. Like I'm not going to do Weight Watchers, but I will only eat 500 calories. Like I just like extremes. And so like, I don't
We need to
follow those.
work on that with you, Sheena.
500 calories.
Oh
Jeez.
man, back in the
I did a 2,000 calorie
HBC days.
diet once and I wanted to die. Yeah.
The best one for me has been carnivore, hands down. Like that has
What is
been
that?
just animal products. That's it.
Like all meat, all protein?
Yeah. And I was
Wow.
doing a stick of butter a day. Yeah. My
Wow.
triglycerides went down, everything looked great, and I did like 30 pounds in 1 month. I have an autoimmune that I'm always trying to like get under control. And like
That's crazy.
that helps me the most. But and it's
How long did you do that for?
about a year. And so I do commercial loans now, and so like that one's a little bit harder to maintain because if you're going out to dinner with clients, like, sorry, I just eat meat and
I'll have
butter.
the stick of butter,
Doesn't always,
please.
yeah, it doesn't
I'll have
always
that
go over
medium
super well.
rare.
Yeah.
Needs to be soft,
So
soft
that
in the
was actually a
middle.
weird thing. I ended up loving. I never liked it except slightly pink before, and then as I got more carnivore, I wanted it more rare. It was just way
Wow.
better. And
I owned a
so yeah,
restaurant in California, and we had this guy who'd come in, and he would tell us every time, I want the burger as rare as you can get it.
he wanted it
And
mooing.
yeah, he would say that. And every week we would cook it less and less. We were like, and he, every time I'd go out, how did you like your burger, sir? Oh, it was great. I loved it even better than before. Well, one time we were like, let's see what he does. I put that thing on the grill like on the bun.
And he was
Like
fun.
it barely browned the outside. He loved it. It was foul. I don't, that's too much. But we did grass-fed beef. Like we knew the farm we were getting the meat from. So
Yeah.
that's why I was a little comfortable doing that, but
Yeah.
still not comfortable watching him eat it.
Burger is still sketchy. Like
Right.
we process our own meat, and I'll do tartare and things like that, but
She's got the set up, man. Because
yeah.
don't you do in the you age it, don't you? In your
Well, so I
refrigerator?
did the dry age experiment in one of my larger stand-up freezers, and it's not a compressor freezer, so it doesn't dehumidify. So I had to like wipe it out every day and have a fan in it and I had not a black light, but a UV light that produces ozone to disinfect everything. And yeah, I think we ended up doing a 37-day age or something like that. I wanted to go the full 45 days, but I couldn't get the humidity low enough to get it to really like not
It was
start to get
phenomenal though.
that. So we actually do now have a cooler, like the frame that all the we just have to put it together. So we have to pour a slab behind our shop, and we're going to put a cooler together and put a separate dehumidifier and cooler. There's like stuff that you buy. There's a company that puts it together, the package together for you. And we're going to start dry aging all of our meat. So I'm so excited about it. Oh, game meat superstar.
This is all news to me. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I just go to the, you get a cheeseburger. That's all of
No,
a sudden
man,
there's
we
all
like our
a meat diet.
old
That's
ass
I've never
meat.
heard of that. Well,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you feel healthy though? I mean, you look healthy. Like
Yeah.
I just the concept of that is insane. But
Yeah, I mean, it was eye-opening because honestly, like that was so my autoimmune it's the easiest way to look it up is called EOE. So it's eosinophilic esophagitis. So essentially, I have a brittle esophagus. It's really easy for me to choke on foods. My esophagus should be like a stretchy rubber band. It's not. It's like an old one. And so it's rooted in allergies. And so as I kind of weed out, like wheat's a big allergen for me, stuff like that. And so when you do the ultimate, right, like carnivore is the ultimate style of diet elimination, like I ended up just feeling so good, and I didn't have any issues because it got to the point 2 years ago, I think. I was actually in the hospital overnight, and
Wow.
something got stuck, and then my doctor wasn't happy. But I've struggled with this pretty much my entire life, and it was the first time I've ever been hospitalized. Second time I've been hospitalized over it, but the first time was from a scope, and that's when they figured out that it was full-blown autoimmune, and it's like less than 3% of the world has it.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's not common. But so as I kind of went, I've only gotten, and this is I think where it's kind of made it where I'm my path has always been like the more resistant one. Like, you tell me no, I'm going to be like, okay, let me figure out a way to make this happen. Or if somebody wants to school me on something, then I'm the one that's like, I'm going to get a degree and show you no. Like, I just,
Relatable. Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool.
she gets it. And so, like the solution was, here's an inhaler that you have to swallow the puffs of air to soften your esophagus. Take 3 different kinds of allergy medications a day. And I just said, like, no, I'm sure there's a better way that I can handle this, that I can manage it. And I don't need to be taking all of this. Like, I don't mind doing that for a period of time while I figure out a different solution. And so I've always just had kind of gone a little countercultural on that kind of stuff, and like fact checked it or saw what else. And so when so I can do carnivore. If you want something like Weight Watchers, there's too many options. I would never
Carnivore
stick to
just
that.
sounds so much better. Like, oh, what's your diet? Oh, I'm on Weight Watchers. They're like, I'm a
Right?
carnivore. Like,
Yeah.
I'm now a carnivore. It
I
sounds
like
cooler.
it, like, just tear it right off the bone. And so
Oh my God.
so yeah, I mean, like, it was interesting because the shock factor, which is another thing that I like too, when people are like, wait, what? You just eat meat? And yeah, and a stick of butter a day. Like,
Only meat and butter.
yeah. And they
That's
all tell you,
hilarious.
and they all tell you, like, I would do that, but I like my heart way too much. I'm like, do you know the history behind like your cholesterol and like statins and like all of, like, like it's something crazy, like that 90% or something like that of the um, medicines that are used in the ORs were never actually fully FDA approved. They daisy chained them.
Oh wow.
So like, it's the essence of like, hey, your iPhone, like, we approve this one because it's like an iPhone 1, right? But now we're on what, iPhone 15 or 16?
Right.
They're wildly different, but and that's how they daisy trained them. Oh, it's kind of similar. Well, we know manipulating one single molecule can make it completely different, which is
And turned,
what they ended up. Yeah.
plastic into
Mhm.
a butter spread product
Yep.
that isn't butter, but isn't plastic, and people eat it. And then they wonder why their knees hurt.
Yep.
Maybe that's our common thread, is that we think outside the box. We buck the system.
Yeah.
That's why
And
we get along.
I think that's what has to happen,
Yeah.
because that was one of the things I was talking with somebody else about, like, hey, what can we do to get some of the cities on board? Like, we need more development, because if we want to solve budget issues, the League of Oregon Cities is projecting, I think, like 80% of all municipalities in Oregon having shortfalls by 2026. And so, like, then what can you do to step around your normal paths? Like, we have to do some sort of development. I'm not saying we're going to become a metropolitan area, but our people should have good houses to live in, and they should have, the ability to, as they need, move out of their house and get a bigger house as their families grow or their needs change, stuff like that. And instead, it's, well, you can go through this grant or you can go through that grant, and these grants are being declined, and it's a 3-year waiting process. Like, circumvent all of that. Have cities and government agencies get on board and say, we want this developed. It benefits us. Maybe we harvest the timber, which can also benefit us, and then we sell the land or provide it as a discount if it's a mitigating factor in order to get quality developers here. But a lot of times they're also building stuff for larger companies that might need to find a place to have that has, business touches that could end up having something to bring jobs here. I mean, there's just a whole trifecta, and I think we can make huge changes in Coos County if everyone gets on the same page between county and cities and just say, what is it that
I
we need to
agree.
do to enrich our people's lives?
I'm super nervous that you're going to end up having a situation where the state just tries to bail everybody out, and there's going to be major strings attached.
They're
Even
already
if there's
talking
not
about
like
it.
direct strings attached, it's just the fact that like now you're reliant on the state, like even more
Yeah.
so. And it's not a good situation. We've got to figure out a way to be self-sufficient around here and do our own thing, because it's got to be local. And then it's like they'll try and pass a levy, which I'm against almost any levy, any new tax levy. And then they'll get mad. They'll be like, they blame the citizens. The citizens didn't pass it. It's like this adversarial thing, and it's like, look, you need the citizens. The citizens don't need you. So like, why are you attacking them? Like these public officials are making this situation worse. If the voters voted in a different way than what you thought they would, or the way you needed them to for the community, what you think the community needs, then engage with them differently and figure out a way to make it work. But to just like blame them and be like, all of our problems are your fault when you're the person who was elected to get us out of the mess, it's just crazy. But you're right, we gotta um, figure out a way locally to do it, and we can't just get bailed out by the state. That we're going to go down a really bad path. That's not how it's supposed to be. Bo asked a question about League of Cities. He says, in your own description, what is the primary purpose of the League of Cities?
To be honest, I'm really not sure. I know that they organize like meetings and trainings and stuff like that. I've never attended one of their meetings. Um, I've done their trainings and stuff like that online, but typically they do like some workshops and stuff like that. I haven't gone to any of those just because most of the time I'm at work. I'm and so they will do things where they organize and get uh, city officials together and do training events, conversation pieces. They have data points that they can provide um, on where they're going through, or like what they can see as challenges coming up. They will also put out like newsletters that kind of talk about what other cities are doing. So I think they're more of just like a marketing connection kind of piece for city officials to get some information. But yeah, I've never gone to any of their trainings, and I read the newsletters that they send in, but I don't know like how else they function, just because I haven't. Any of
The
their
idea
meetings are
sounds
usually
great.
during my work.
Like it makes sense. Like, let's get everybody together. You probably have common problems. Let's help each other solve them. But I think it ends up like most government organizations and bureaucracies end up like evolving into more of like a group think tank. And
Right.
yeah, I don't think the current iteration of the League of Oregon Cities, at least my interaction with it, has not. It's like they come out with talking points essentially. Like let's
It's
let's
exactly
all
what they do.
let's all
It's in
go
their
after our
mission,
citizens in
vision,
the
and
exact same
values.
way.
They say that it is their trusted go-to resource that helps Oregon city staff and elected leaders serve their cities well and speak with one voice. That could be a problem,
Yeah, the whole
especially
first
if
part of it
you're,
was fine, but the last part
The
can
one
definitely
voice.
be
Yep.
well,
be
Mm-mm.
the last part was
used
so
for evil purposes.
now if you look at, because they do have a DEI thing, it's not very, there's not much that I'm seeing that jumps out at me that's particularly problematic on its face. But you're not being very diverse if you're trying to create one voice now, are we? And
Right.
maybe that is kind of the problem, is that they're so focused, hyper focused on creating one voice, that they're ignoring all of these other voices that are saying, we don't want what you're shoving down our throat. And to your point, Chris, about turning on their citizens, rather than tell us you need more money, I'm already being taxed at what, 25, a quarter of my income already goes to the government. How much more of my income do they expect? How much more of my income do they need to do to like run basic social services? Why don't they go to the state and ask the state publicly? Here's my challenge to the local leaders, all of you, make a public video, post it publicly, asking our state leaders to explain to our residents why they need more money to do their jobs. Explain it to it, challenge them, ask Oregon where our money is going. Because
They'll
from
do it.
what I can
It just
tell,
won't make sense to us. It'll be so convoluted, or it'll be so
What'd you
phony.
say it was? 150 pages of that one.
That was just the one
yeah,
for the schools, and
yeah.
then there's the college has a different equalization formula. It's nuts. And then urban renewal has it's it's too complex. It doesn't make sense. You've got layers upon layers of people trying to solve problems and getting nowhere. So they just add a new layer on top, thinking it'll work. And then that's when you end up with hundreds of pages of documents to explain something that's clearly not working. Like Oregon has the lowest test scores in the nation for schools, and they think
We're
that
like,
this is a great thing.
yeah, and I think US is like what, 28th? I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it was like 20, and that might be a little bit older. I'm sure we've fallen from there, but like, you know, we have third world countries beating us in test scores. This obviously isn't a funding issue.
It's not. It's there. I pulled data from other counties and other states because, if I'm really going to dig into this in the potential future, I'm definitely not going to look at other places in Oregon to look for success. So looking outside of Oregon, there are schools spending significantly less money and getting significantly better results. So
Yeah, I think we're at 13,000 per kid per day for the
yeah,
Oregon spending, or at
what?
least Coquille.
$13,000 per child per day?
It's well, or that's what they get paid. It's something like that. I'll have to refigure out, but it's like 13,000 is what they spend. And so
No
that's why
way.
the the attendance piece is being pushed so much because it's on a daily basis that they're paid. So at one point I got a letter in the mail that's like, they created a new position that was like the attendance director or something like that. And we're talking like my kids only miss school if they're sick, right? It's not like I let them just stay home for any reason. So one year they each only missed one day, and I got a letter that said your attendance was 94.9%. Your goal for next year is 99.9%.
That's not realistic.
Right. And they wanted a 5% increase, but there's yeah, they wanted a 5% increase from the previous year. And I'm like, they literally missed like one day of school for being sick. That was it. It's not like my kids have the ability to, or have figured out the fact that I think if you miss 10 days is when you get unenrolled. So most kids will go every 9 days. But those are also going to be households that isn't expected, like where education isn't valued, or I guess indoctrination technically, but things along those lines. And so that's where it's just you're setting arbitrary goals for no reason, just to justify a job.
Right.
they're
What are you
distractions.
Yeah, what are you doing tangibly to get these to get up, and that is going to be heavily service based. Like we know people personally who in times past they didn't go to school because they didn't have clean clothes to go. So we were a place that we're like, if that's what's stopping you from going to school, come do laundry here. So the schools do need some solutions like that, like a place that they can go and have. I mean, it's going to be high service to overcome some of those, but I think they're at like a 65 or 69% attendance rate right now for the majority. And so, yeah, so I mean, so they have to do things to increase that, but at the same time, like nobody's looking at these things comprehensively, because if they were, anybody who is above an 80% attendance rate would not be getting those kinds of cards home if that's your gap. That's a huge gap.
So it's
I think we got a
13,000 annually.
Annually.
The average daily cost of varies, but generally substantial amount. Public school spending around $13,000 per student annually.
I think it was a 2020 article that was talking about how Oregon's, or maybe it was Coos County's, was like the worst spending. I think it was 2020. Might have been earlier than that, maybe 2016.
The graph I had up, like you see the money going through the roof and it's not tracking with inflation, and you just have test scores. This one's just for math, but it's not great. We're not going where we need to go. It's a formula that's obviously not working. And yeah, it's like I don't know, maybe they have, but like, are they looking at other states, that are performing well? Are our leaders in Oregon looking at how they're doing it? How, is it a societal thing in these other states? Like their whole fabric of society is different? Is it do they have less
So,
distractions? Like, do they have tampons in the men's room in Florida? I don't think so.
right. Yeah. And so I think it's both and I think that there's a really great, I don't know if you guys know who Dave Rubin is. I used to watch him quite a bit, especially when I got like pretty political a handful of years ago. But he has this interview. I'll post it on the chat, or like I'll send it to you guys, and then maybe I'll post it in case anybody else wants to listen to it off of the comment section for who's ever attended the live stream. But I can't remember what her last name is, but she's a headmistress over in Britain. And she really gets into that because she has people protesting her, and her name's, I think it's Catherine. She has people protesting her on what she has done with the school. And she goes, they have uniforms that are required to be worn. And she just talks with the kids about, like, you have to look a certain way because we don't want those kind of distractions. And, she talks about if they see him with sagging, she tells them to pull them up because they're not getting there. And there's this strict, kind of protocols that they have to adhere to. They don't want a lot of distractions, but they also practice the fundamentals, and they get really good at reading, writing, and arithmetic, because if you have something more complicated to do, you need to rely on your memorizations of the mathematics. And so she goes over that. It's a very, she did another one more recently with Jordan Peterson, and it was a really phenomenal interview. But it was, she got to the point where she's like, I'm tired of seeing these institutions say, hey, we did all of these things like Common Core and all of that kind of stuff, and then when it fails, they blame it on the kid's skin color instead of their failed policies. And so what she shows is time and time again, when you just go back to the basics that we were all raised with. Did you know our math is called the shortcut method? That we all know is called the shortcut method. And they, and that's what they focus on, those things first. And they don't do, like, when my youngest was in 4th grade, he wasn't understanding subtraction. And then 2 weeks later, they had him doing division. Well, if you don't understand subtraction, you're never going to be able to do division. They're inverses of each other. Just like if you're really good at adding, multiplication is going to be easy for you. Why are we moving on to that and then going to pre-algebra at 4th grade when they don't have the basics down? You're trying to set them up for failure because you're trying to meet certain requirements in order to get those fundings that is needed when it doesn't make sense. And you're skipping over fundamentals and then blaming it on whatever else you want to blame it on because the policy failed, the idea failed. And so it's a really good one. I'll find both of those because I listen to both of them, but they're just really interesting. I'll post them for anybody who. points.
Getting anybody to admit that a policy has failed is like pulling teeth. I've like had
Oh, it's
zero
insane.
success.
You mentioned Jordan
Yeah, because there's so
Peterson,
much pride
and
built into it.
I didn't know much about Jordan Peterson. I'd heard people like mention him here and there, and then I was actually at the North Bend Library. They had a book sale. It was like a free book giveaway. They had so many books, they were just giving them away, and there was a book
They
there
gave
on
away one
Jordan
of mine.
Peterson, and it was like this thick, and it said like 12 rules of life. And I had a
Oh,
friend
so good.
who really liked it, so I gave him the book. But I was like, you know, like I feel weird giving somebody a book that I've never read. Like what did I
Hmm.
just hand him? And it's rules for life. Like what if this is bad? So I got the audiobook and listened to it when I was out gardening all summer, and it was awesome. And he read it,
Phenomenal.
which is always cool when you have the author reading the book, because you get those little like the emotion out of a lot of it. That was a cool book. And he has a sequel probably called like 12 More Rules for Life or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking
Maps of
forward to reading
Meaning is
that
a good
one.
one. I haven't read it, but like I've listened to his talks on it, but it's about personality makeups and how like so I ended up doing his Big Five. Did I ever send you that one, Brandy? His Big Five? Did you ever do that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if we matched
It's
on it.
basically an ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like that's like when I was saying like I'm high in agreeableness, like that's actually from his Big Five aspects. But um yeah, like oh man, he's phenomenal. But and he's gone through it too, you know, where he's having to go through he has to do re-education right now because of all of the stuff that had happened, especially during COVID lockdowns, and him becoming more vocal and him saying, you know, basic things that all of us like to say, like, you don't get to tell me what I say. These are my words. And
Thought you refused to do their re-education case. So Chinese Cultural Revolution, my God. But I thought he refused
yeah,
to do that.
he might have refused to do it. I know that it was like um
He's from Canada, right?
yeah. Hmm.
And they're a whole different system than us.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And they were demanding it, or I think for him to lose his clinical license.
They took
That's
his
Um,
wild.
they yanked his clinical license because he wouldn't say that boys who put on dresses become women.
It's nuts.
Basically, like in a nutshell, because
and
he wouldn't go along with some ideological stuff.
And what they don't also tell you is how much support he got from the trans community on that, because a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of them don't want that kind of light shined on them. And so they don't go over that piece. But yeah, it was in Canada at that time, I think there was something like 127 different, um, whatever those are called, like that pronouns that you'd prefer to be, I mean, like legally recognized. And so
Yep.
they were trying to make it illegal where his job would be put in jeopardy if he didn't use them properly. And his whole point was, how am I supposed to know somebody's pronouns and get them, you know, or even have the ability to retain that kind of
It's
knowledge?
pronouns are what you use when someone's not in the room. So like when like I don't need to, like I hate going to a meeting, and I've been at county meetings like the homeless advisory committee. You go to the meeting and like they'll announce their pronouns like here locally, and you're like, what are you doing? You're in a meeting.
It's
I'm
so
If I needed to
performative.
refer to Brandy, I would say Brandy. I don't need to say like her or him or
Right.
they, like, right? Like it's
Right.
the idea of it is so stupid. It's virtue signaling and other words
Yep.
that only Jordan Peterson understands. That guy is educated, and he does his research. And like I lived in California at the time when I had first heard about him, and they talked about him like he was the devil, and they said something about he like worships
Oh,
reptiles, or he thinks the
yeah.
reptiles live amongst us or something. And that's like all I had ever heard about him. And then fast forward years and years later, and now I'm reading this book about like 12 rules for life, and there's really not much political in there. And it's like, how can
No.
you disagree with this stuff? Like this is basic, like how to improve your entire life sort of stuff. And you got to respect that the guy researched, spent the time to write the book. He's reading the audiobook to me. I mean, like, this guy's invested in it. And and
Yeah. And
the
they're such
result of it
horrible
is people
rules.
saying he's evil and he worships reptiles. Like that's oh my gosh.
Yourself. What type of people would want to convince the population that someone who is really teaching basic life skills, like he's really just
Yeah.
advocating for basic life sustaining behaviors? What kind
Well,
of people would like want to demonize someone. Maybe a group of people who want everyone dependent on the state. I don't know.
Well, it's the new religion, worship of state. That's really what it boils down to. And yeah, I mean, because to your point, like,
Where have we
okay,
seen
so
that before?
yeah, rule one is walk with your shoulders back so you're ready to take on the world. Rule two is treat yourself as though you were somebody who actually matters. Oh my God, that's horrific. I think rule eight or something like that is if you encounter a cat, pet it. Like there's a rule to make your bed. Such a monster. Such a
It was
monster.
cool. I loved his writing style because he'd start out with exactly what you just said. He'd like state it, he'd briefly describe, and then he'd go off on all these random tangents that seem irrelevant.
Yeah.
He'd bring it all back together at the
Yep.
end and restate. It's like, yes, I'm like sitting there like with lettuce and carrots. I'm gardening at the time, and I'm like, yes, my life's gonna improve. So that's cool. That's crazy. You memorized the stuff, so you're like a super fan. All
Oh
right.
yeah. Yeah, I've been
I was
into
gonna
them for
do
a
a
while, but
I was gonna do a book club for the area, like maybe even do it like virtually like this if people can't attend. And like that was one of the candidates for the book because it's like
That's a
12. You
cool
can do it over
idea.
12 weeks, right? Or like every other
Yeah.
week, and like it's like a good format. So maybe I'll still
yeah.
do that because that was a damn good book. Um, and I'm not even sure like politically, like is he conservative? Is he libertarian? Like where does he fall on the map?
So I
He's,
think
he's pretty libertarian, I think.
yeah, I think here he's definitely considered more of a conservative just because of how big the conservative party has gotten. But he there's quite a bit of liberal leanings that he has, but again, it's like old school Democrat almost. So which is
Yeah, it's very
conservative now.
Reagan-esque Democrat type.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like the whole thing is he just doesn't want to be bothered. Like that's it. Like that's what all of us want. Like let us live our own life.
I wish people would, dude, if I could change one thing about our education system, I would make everyone learn about the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Because what we're seeing culturally right now is very, very similar to what happened in the 50s in Maoist China.
Yep. I can't remember her name. Sorry, I've been fighting like allergies or something for the last 3 weeks, so I'm so brain foggy right now. But
You're doing very well. I'm
I,
impressed.
The pollen is
my,
starting. The pollen's
oh
coming.
man.
The pollinating.
Well, I thought it might have been a cold, and so then I stopped taking my allergy medicine, and then this last weekend it just hit me again, and I was like, all right, I'm back on my allergy meds. But um, I can't remember what her name is. I know she has an interview with Dave Rubin, but she's from North Korea and she escaped and she talks
Oh,
about that and about the amount of propaganda that is going on in our world right now and the amount of just like how it's mirroring that, and she's shocked that more Americans are not waking up to it. And it's
Yomi Park.
yes. Oh, hers is, well, it's gut wrenching because like I think she was trafficked at one point.
Yes, she was trafficked out of North Korea into China. She was sold into sex slavery, and that's
Yep.
the only way her family could get her out of North Korea. I believe the whole rest of her
They
family
don't
is
realize that. They
deceased.
don't realize that with
Yeah.
the border crossings,
And
how
then
many of them are being trafficked.
yes, and so she was a sex slave in China for a period of time, and then
Yep.
was, I believe, able to escape China into South Korea. I believe. I would have to double check and make sure
That sounds right. But then she
have it
also talks
correctly,
about,
but
yeah, they have spring is the season of death for them because of how everyone gets sick and they're only eating bugs. I mean, that's the outlook. I mean, and we've seen it with Venezuela. They had communism for 20 years and it crumbled and people were eating rats in the streets. Like
Wow.
these are the outlooks. If we want to go down this path, that's the outlook. It's not avoidable.
Let's not do that. Let's
Oh yeah,
all make a pact to not eat rats and bugs in the spring.
that's not
man,
on my carnivore
Wikipedia sure
diet.
has
Let's
gone some kind of way, haven't they?
Wikipedia.
Right?
Are you seeing the giant banner asking for money?
It's
Every
just,
time you go to
I
Wikipedia.
notice every time I go into an article on Wikipedia, It is written
Definitely.
from a very leftist perspective. So they're throwing in all of the stuff, basically discrediting her accounts of, like, as if
Yep.
North Korea just isn't as abusive as everybody's saying it is. And it's, as I'm just kind of skimming this, it's just
Oh, AI is the same way.
curious. What's that?
Yeah. AI is the same way, just because it's all about what's input into the system. But
Parameters?
yep. Yeah, absolutely. I know. I
Bullshit in,
like,
bullshit out.
yeah, the day that DuckDuckGo was bought out by Google was so sad because that was the only search engine where you could actually find true things. And
Right.
Brave
You
doesn't do it
really
any justice.
have to be very careful, or like word things really, really specifically to get what you're looking for on Google, because man, they will bury stuff.
Oh yeah, there's so much that like there's so many links that I had before from DuckDuckGo before it was sold out that I can't get again because I think Google ended up buying it. And so now you don't have any way to actually bypass the true things to find the real information.
AI definitely scares me in the sense of how does it control information? Like you thought AI would like take us over through robots or something, and it's like, oh, they're gonna fight our minds. They're gonna take, like you're going to have kids growing up that rely on that so heavily for information, for not only consuming information but also like for anything they put out there. Oh, like I have to express this idea, I'm going to type little bits and pieces of it, and then AI will form sentences, and it might
Right.
change the meaning of it a little bit, and you're not actually articulating what you want to articulate. So that scares me big time about AI. um,
Right.
Ayn Rand talked about that. We're in a battle for men's minds.
Yeah,
Haven't we
absolutely.
always been, you know? I mean, you capture the mind and you have the body, and we all know that there's a certain party in the United States that loves cheap labor, and they're trying to import as many cheap bodies as they possibly can. And now they've uncovered why. I mean, I always suspected it was for cheap labor. But now we've found the number of social security numbers issued under the Biden administration, and became pretty clear, you know,
I just
use
got a
cheap
letter.
bodies to make money off of.
Yeah. I just
You
got a
just got
letter from the IRS that mine was used for social security, was my social security number was used to obtain employment yesterday. I was like,
Oh wow,
yeah.
that's crazy. Well, this has been interesting. This has been awesome. You've been
Same.
on the show for 2 hours now. This is incredible. Did you have any other topics that you want to address? We didn't get to the budget stuff in Coquille, but I just didn't want to get into it if it's a complicated thing, and it's not really uh your deal. I think it's more of like the whole city is still trying to figure it out and address it. So I didn't want to drop that on you. But if you wanted to talk to that, or if we wanted to just call it a night because it's been 2 hours.
I'm good with either. I can touch on it briefly. I know that our, I think our city manager put out, a news
There's like a
release on
two-page
it.
press release. Yeah, if people go to the
Yeah,
Facebook page, you can read it.
yeah. And so essentially, like what's hard for I think to how to grasp it is because it's not that it's cash isn't missing. Like when budgets are done, they're done off of projections. And so that's how it's the difference between like us and our everyday financing. We do cash accounting. So when you have accrual, you're trying to project what the income is going to be and what the actual costs are going to be. And you have to always, kind of be rolling that ahead. So with they've been working diligently to try and get all of our audits caught up because the previous admin wasn't doing the audits. And they're expensive and they take like 9 months to do.
Yeah.
So as soon as we roll one up, and I think I might be a little wrong on the number, but I think on our last budget that I saw, our budgets for the audit was like 50 grand. I mean, they're not cheap. And so
Wow.
what had happened is they ended up isolating to a 20, I think it was 2021, 2022 time frame of when the previous admin had given us wrong starting numbers. And that's what it ended up happening. And because things are built on projections and that this is over 3 years, that's why it can escalate to the point that it has, is because you're assuming that your numbers are right. And when you're basing off, your previous budget, you're assuming that these numbers are right, and it continues to go on. So we still remained working diligent to get all of the budgets caught up and doing anything that we can to be as transparent as possible, posting our register. All of our meeting packets are available online, and whatever we can to make sure that the budgets, ideally, we would like it to be where when we approve the budget in January, we will have our audit complete. That's ideally how it should be. And we're working as hard as we can with our staff. They are really slaving away at this to make sure that, everything, we work hand in hand with a CPA with all of this, our bank recs, everything. And so they are, they're working hand in hand to get everything caught up so that we can have our budgets as current as possible. And they have been working on that for the past, ever since Forrest's been there. Sam, Jay, those were some of the people that came in a handful of years ago. And when they saw that they weren't getting the reports publicized that they should on the finances, they have been working diligently. So that was one of my takes on it, where I was like, are we really surprised that this has happened though? Like, you guys were wanting to get things to a transparent level, like, for a reason. And so they've worked really diligently on that. We continue to work diligently on that. It is such a huge hit to, the wind in our sails, because we were moving forward on getting things done with, like the streetscapes, where we can eventually have the downtown revitalized and the services brought underground, and that wouldn't have to be a concern about possible fires and, things that we can do to greatly benefit. And then to find something like this is just such, a letdown. But again, that's why a lot of people that are on council now joined, was because there was contention previously and they wanted a better way. And so now we're discovering some of that. I think we have the proper team that will be able to pivot and get through it, and also make sure that we are doing anything we can to increase transparency, to be there available for understanding, and just navigate the waters as we go through and getting this recovered in the next few years.
Well, I liked that the mayor did a little Facebook video. I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw him commenting on some local groups because people had concerns. The people I've spoken to who are, let's just say, passionate about this issue have received responses from him promptly. He responded to our request to be on the show. Maybe we'll set something up. He had a scheduling conflict. And you guys put out a 2-page, like, you guys are on it, right? Like, I haven't gotten into the details. I haven't looked at the numbers. It sounds, I'll take you guys' word for it at the moment, that it sounds like it was an honest mistake, and it doesn't, it's not like money was stolen, it's like not something like
Right.
that is what it sounds. And then the other thing was the ballot measures that were put on for the ambulance service were immediately like pulled back. You guys were like, okay, that doesn't make sense. Like, that's like you talked earlier about, like, if something's not working, you need to recognize that and adjust. And somebody, I don't know if it was one person or the whole group, decided like, hey, this doesn't make sense to do right now. This is not gonna make sense, so let's not do it. And like, I
Yeah, it was a
don't
group
see that
decision.
happening.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
even better that it was a group. So, like, I just don't see that stuff happening a lot around here, and it's cool to see that happening. And like you said, if people want transparency, then you're gonna see some shit. Like, you're gonna
Right.
see some stuff come forward
Yeah,
that's like,
yeah.
yikes. So maybe knowing that it's, you guys are about transparency, and you're a new crew, give you guys some leeway to kind of uncover some things and work through them. So I hope people aren't giving you guys a lot of shit over it, because it's not
I know
your
that
fault
people are
personally.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we weren't any of part of it that caused this mess, but um, and I think, everyone has their right to be disheartened. This is a disheartening blow to anyone involved, and I understand that they may feel that for sure. We do. And I think that, I think everybody, I mean, they have the right to be concerned, but I think everybody has been pretty nice with it all, so I don't think that I think that there's questions, which is fair, and they need to have those answered. But I don't think anybody's been rude or disrespectful in a way that is personal, you know, um, at all. So I'm really pleased with how, I mean, like, I know that there is concern over ambulance and stuff like that, and that's fair. And there's questions that I've seen floating around on Facebook with that, and those are all fair. But I don't think I've seen like a huge group of anything. You're always going to have a few people that are going to be upset, but that's just how numbers work.
Well, appreciate you working through that. I know it's a complex issue, and to briefly describe it is not easy.
I
And
still have
but
to
yeah,
read through the stuff that you sent me, Sheena, to better
Oh yeah.
understand. I would love to better understand how projections affect, grow exponentially and affect exponentially.
I wish I
And I
was more
haven't had a chance
techy.
yet.
Yeah. I wish I was
can I
more techy.
oversimplify it to be like you guys just thought you had this money coming in because somebody wrote it down on a piece of paper, and then it turns out you didn't, but you still have money and it wasn't
Right.
stolen. It just,
Right.
you guys have less money than you thought you did now because you guys started with the wrong numbers, and now but
Right.
you're adjusting and you're not bankrupt, and you just now have to
Yeah.
readjust your goals and align that with the actual money and make it more realistic.
Right. Because
Is
the
that
first and
was that
foremost goal,
oversimplifying it?
no, I think that's great. And that's the thing is, they were, when they were looking at the budget, one of the things they were like, we're trying to, keep up with council goals. And I'm like, first and foremost is for us to be solvent. All the other goals go by the wayside until that happens. Like, it's nice if we want to do new parks or whatever, and yeah, you might have some funding that isn't general fund money for that, but like, all of that is on hold until we figure out solvency first, and everyone on the group is passionate about that.
Can
It's
I can I ask a tough question? Is there was there like a person that made this mistake? Like, are they? It sounds like it wasn't intentional, but like, do they still work for the city? Is this something
no,
that was okay?
no, I don't know who the person was that would have been solely responsible, but it was previous administration. And I think they said it was 2022. It might have been 2021, but um I know that there was talk previously, because there was a period where they had like three city managers within maybe like 2 years. I mean, there was
Oh
just like
wow.
a lot of turnover, I think, between 2016 and 2020. And so there was just a ton of turnover at that time. And even with city council, there was a lot of people revolving too. So a lot of the people that we have on our board now that started at that time came in, they really got things under control. They made sure that, we're following procedures, um, so that things are kept in an orderly fashion, and doing anything they can to increase transparency. So I think it took them a little bit to actually get financials at the meetings. And that was specifically Jay going, why do we not have financials? Like, you need financials. So they started developing that. They started working hard to get caught up on budgets and all of the auditing, anything like that. And so we're still charging ahead on that. And so ideally, we want to be caught up to the most current year, so that this way, anything is discovered, that if there is a mistake like that in the future, we know about it within 6 months of the budget being passed. And then the adjustments are much smaller.
That's great. Yep, mistakes are
Sounds
going
like
to happen. You got to plan for it.
Yeah, we're human, unfortunately.
Yep. Checks and
sounds like you guys got
balances.
a handle on it, and you got a new crew in there. So hopefully something like this, like you said, gets caught a lot sooner, or just never happens again. But
Absolutely. Yeah. What other checks and balances can be in place to make sure that dual control You know, I mean, like, because you do control just not because somebody steals. You do it because people are human and errors happen. And so, you know, looking at all the above and making sure that anything like that happened in the past, you know, is avoidable for the future.
And those mechanisms build public trust, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes it where if the system fails in that point, you know, if two people check the numbers and, you know, they agree on them, you know, then it's a team issue. It's not just solid on one person. And that helps with, you know, you can protect people that way too.
Very cool. This has been awesome. I appreciate you doing this. I'm
Thank
trying
you
not to
guys
say
so much.
anything else because like it's gonna keep going on and
I
this is
know,
Yeah, I
I'm
do
a
have to
talker, sorry.
get it's coming up on my bedtime. I gotta
Yeah,
start my
same.
wind down.
your wind down. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I have a really
Good.
hard time falling asleep. So there's like little things that I have to do leading. I have to turn all the lights down and like otherwise my brain won't shut off.
Right.
So
I don't
yeah,
think mine
it's
ever
almost
does, but that's it. That's a different topic.
yours definitely
All right.
doesn't.
Well, very cool, Sheena. It was amazing to meet you and very cool that you came on here and talked. We covered such a range of topics and we'll have to do this again sometime. Um,
Great.
biggest thing for me is if there's any way we can help the city of Coquille with the crime issue, that's my big thing. It's just so unacceptable. So if you can think of any way that we could help, whether it's like on the ground helping with like a cleanup or shining a light on something or even just bringing people on to talk about solutions, something like if there's anything we can do, because that's a big county problem that you guys are sharing too much of the burden for. So those are
I
my final
appreciate that.
words. If anybody else
I appreciate
has
that.
anything, go for it. People have loved you being on. The comments are overwhelmingly favorable. So good
Oh,
job.
that's very sweet
Yeah.
of them. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sheena. This was great.
Thank you
I'm
guys so
so
much. I
glad that I
appreciate
get to share you with everybody else, you know.
it. Yeah, I know.
Very cool.
All
I
right.
was so excited to come on here with you. So
I'm glad we can make it happen.
yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I'll let you all
Thank
go.
you.
I'll
Bye,
see you later,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.